Hello, ladies. Welcome back to the podcast that everybody loves, the ILBATDs podcast. We're here for the week 4 recap and week 5 preview. Three-man booth again. No one seems to want to be a guest on the podcast. Alex said he will in the future, but we're guestless once again. So, gents, it's good to be with you.
Good to be back as always. I take that as a good sign, by the way. I have a feeling that it's more, it speaks more to us as hosts and that our content is giving the people what they want enough that they wouldn't want to be on there and maybe kill a vibe. But that's me, pumping up my own, podcasting ego there. So if anyone wants to dispute that, feel free to read it, send it in the chat and we'll all thumbs down it.
I know Willie's going to dispute it some way or somehow.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right in. It was an eventful week, both in the fantasy world and in the world of ACLs. We'll get into it. Very low scoring matchup between myself and Jason. Neither one of us beat the median. This was an incredibly efficient matchup. Jason had 100% lineup efficiency this week, and I had 99.3. So a good thing I was so close to 100% because I needed every point. It was coming down to Monday night. I had like a 5 point lead heading into Monday night and had Garrett Wilson. He had Brees Hall and Sleeper. I messaged this in the group chat. Sleeper like kept saying I had like a 98% chance to win when like all Brees Hall needed to do was break a big run or like get a touchdown, and I was fucked. So I don't know how it does its math sometimes, but it worked out. I ended up winning comfortably as the game script helped me get some catches for Garrett Wilson there. But not a great week for my guys. We're dealing with some injuries. Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, Brock Purdy might be hurt again. But we got the dub. We stay at 500. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, you did call the low scoring matchup, I believe, last week on the pod, but you also didn't pick yourself. You picked Jason in this. So maybe if you actually had some confidence in yourself, your pick record would be a little bit better. It might even be better than your actual fantasy football record. But we don't have to get into that. You're absolutely right. You are kind of scraping by right now with injuries. But you put your best team together. And that's all you got to do in the regular season. I'm still expecting more out of Jason. He'll get a few players back in the next few weeks here. But just a low scoring game and you scrape this one out. So, props to Nick's Brockhard Chubb. You're getting harder throughout the season, I guess.
Apparently, Sleeper isn't too confident you're going to win this game, even still, because it still only tells me you have a 69% chance to win right now.
Nice.
Um, nice. Um, yeah, I mean, this has been kind of the story of Jason's season so far. I mean, everybody pretty much underperformed. Brees Hall barely got over his projection, but pretty much everybody, with the exception of Tyler Warren as well, underperformed. It looks like Jason has a lot of boomer bust kind of characters on his team, Jameson Williams being one of them, Brian Thomas becoming one of them, it seems. And then a couple of just guys who we were a little bit higher on pre-draft that are just not that good this year, like DJ Moore and Jerry Judy. He desperately needs Rashee Rice to come back, and looks to suddenly have some quarterback problems with Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence. So this is a gutsy win by Nick. I think kind of hovering around that 500 mark that'll keep you well within the playoff race. And I just think weeks where you can get a win but not beat the median, I think are probably some of the most important wins you can get because it could very easily be a landslide from there. And we've seen that happen with Troy and Rob already. So big win. I think even though you didn't beat the median, I still think this is one that you're going to need come playoff time.
And we had a few big movers and shakers in the standings with this week. Jason was one of them. He fell 4 spots all the way to the playoff bubble. He's the 8 seed right now. And in the next matchup, we had another one of them. Willie up 4 spots from the 10 seed to the 6 seed with a double win here over Johnny, who falls to 6-2 on the year, but still holding on to the 3rd seed at the moment. This was a really good win for Willie. I think Willie was sort of in like back against the wall. You got to be scared of the wounded animal type game for him. and he came out against a team that we've been talking about as being one of the underrated teams in the league, and Johnny, and had a really good performance. Genty finally looked like the first round pick. We always talk about your first round picks have to show up. You know, if you don't get production from your first round pick, really hard to win in our league. And he got 32 and a half from Genty, which was enough, you know, with some other good performances up and down the roster. So kudos to Willie. This was a statement game for him to say, you know, don't forget about me in the playoff hunt.
Absolutely. Definitely the Genty game. Um, really showing up on the gridiron, but also on the fantasy football field. That's huge for Willie. Still can't figure out the double skill position situation he's got going on. He picked the wrong Kansas City running back, but he started both Buffalo receivers, which paid off. Um, Scoring 140, that feels good, especially after coming out the gate week one with a high point game, and then having 2 weeks back to back, not too hot, and then coming back here with the 143. Um, that has to feel good. Johnny's team, on the other hand, he's lower in the points for, so that 6-2 record is a bit inflated. It's still, it still sucks losing to a guy. It's losing when you score that 130 number. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen in this league. Um, and you know, just looking at his top five guys: quarterback, two running backs, and three receivers. All those six guys, I should say, all scored double digits, and you lose that game. The core of your team is putting up the numbers, and you lose that game. That hurts. Zero from the Niners D. Um, I'm not sure he could have done much better. Yeah, not a lot on the bench, a total of like less than 20 points on the bench. So um, that one hurts from Johnny's perspective, but he is 6-2, and just a good comeback game from Willie's statement win for Willie, saying, he's in this thing.
Yeah, Willie, but despite the gruesome Tyreek Hill injury, somehow managed to pull this off. Willie's already kind of facing a little bit of an injury bug with Kittle on the IR for another couple of weeks, it seems. Um, and then also now Tyreek out for the season. I think that's like two of his top 4 round draft picks right there. Um, so prospects are not looking super hot for Willie, especially after dropping like $1,000 a fab on Jake Tonjes in week 2. Um, but a win's a win. Dropped 143 points, not the easiest thing to do in this league. I will say that Johnny I think, has done a pretty decent job of navigating his own quarterback injuries. Right, like he got Marcus Mariota, Jaden Daniels has obviously been out for a couple of weeks, and Jordan Addison coming back with a nice game, although it doesn't look like he practiced any wind sprints while he was suspended. Got caught in that 90-yard touchdown or not 90-yard pass and didn't score. Um, there's no moral victories here, but I do think that was still a good showing from Johnny. And I still think he's kind of a force to be reckoned with in this league. And let's see if we can keep it up. He's kind of been very hit or miss this season. So if we can keep it up, he's got to make some moves to kind of solidify that lineup. But I don't think Johnny's taking this one too hard.
Shine your shade. Willie makes the playoffs. He's sitting one game above the cut line right now. Just lost Tyreek for the season.
That's a tough one. I think, each week there's a lot of that stratification, as Cam would say. It's hard to predict that now. I want to be positive with Willie's team. As you know, he'll come with the receipts. So I'll go ahead and shine that for the sake of my own protection, if you will. Feel a little bit threatened by him earlier on in the season. I won't back him in a corner again. We'll go ahead and shine it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to shine it, but I think he's right there in the 8 seed at the end of the season. Um, I see Josh kind of lurking around that 9 spot right now, and I think he's like top 5 in points in the league right now, which is pretty solid. At 3 and 5, he has a deep bench, as we know. The thing is, it's kind of a 10-man race for the playoffs right now. I mean, obviously, Rob's playoff starts on Thursday. I think he's got to essentially win 75% of the rest of his games to even sniff the idea of the playoffs. Troy's close, one game ahead of Rob. So just because of that, I'm going to shine it, and I think it's just going to come down to kind of a tussle for that last two spots as it always does. So I'm going to shine it because numbers are in Willie's favor right now, but I don't think he's going to finish better than where he's at right now.
Yeah, I'm going to shine it as well. I've learned not to bet against Josh Allen in fantasy. I think there's going to be enough performances from Josh Allen where he gives Willie 40 points, and that's probably enough to either beat the median or beat his opponent. And I like that call on him being the 8 seed. I feel like he's going to be the 8 or the 9, but I'll shine it and say he gets the 8.
And Willie's been pretty successful as the as a lower seed in the playoffs. I think he's made the championship twice as the 7 or the 8 seed. So
Mhm.
never count him out when he's there.
We just talked about both of these managers. Troy gets his first win of the season. It was very close against Josh. He just misses out on beating the median on basically the last play of the game in the Jets game. That was very Troy-esque in how he missed the median. 2-6 would look a lot different than 1-7. I mean, that's a huge, huge game at this stage of the season to be 1-7 versus 2-6. And we talked about Josh, unfortunately, goes 0-2 this week, but still puts up 130 points. A lot of weeks that's going to be 2-0. So I guess one quick question for you guys before we sort of break this one down: panic meter on Josh's team, 0 to 10. How panicked are you if you're him sitting in the 9 seed, falling 3 spots this week to 9 at 3-5?
I'm pretty low. I'd say 2 or 3, simply because he is top 4 in points for. So his record would not suggest that he's scoring a lot of points, but he is. And also 132 median is going to be one of the highest medians of the season. So again, 129 is not an 0-2 week. Um, so I mean, there's some concern there. As far as panic goes, though, it's very low. On the other hand, Troy is very high. He needs to again win that 75% of his games. He needs to put up 130 each week to really give himself a chance to even sniff the playoffs. It's got to happen right now. And but low on Josh's team. I think he's okay. It's just how the season goes on. He's scoring a lot of points, and I will never forget the Joshes. I will always remember the Joshes.
Yeah, I might even go even lower. I might even say a 1. Still very squarely in the playoff race, one game out right now. Some difficult lineup decisions. If he starts Kyle Pitts, he wins this game pretty easily instead of Chigakonkwo. Also, so he has a little bit of depth at tight end now, and of course he has Woody Marks, who absolutely exploded this week and looks to be potentially the RB1 in that offense moving forward. So he has some weapons to play with. And from the rest of the lineup, which performed pretty well, maybe Alvin Kamara played a little bit, underperformed a little bit, but and of course Justin Herbert's not going to put up less than 13 every single week, but um, I think Josh is at a 1. I think that there's enough movement that can happen over the next couple of weeks with from that 9 to that 6 or 5 seed, where I think he'll be fine. I do think that I'm not going to say Troy's at a 10 because I know we've said it every single podcast. Looking at the roster, like this doesn't look like a 1-7 roster to me. But he took some risk with drafting some rookies, and that obviously came to bite him in the butt. And it's not like he's played a bunch of teams who have scored a ton on him. I think he's like number 9 or 10 as far as points against in this league. So um, he's got to start turning it on. Looks like he's got some signs of life from, of course, Marion Hampton. RJ Harvey played pretty well this week too. Of course, Bo Nix and Marvin Mims. So he does have some players who he can kind of plug in there. I was talking to him earlier actually, and part of the blessing and the curse of having a deep team is that you have to make lineup decisions and you got to be efficient and make the roster management appropriately. And that kind of becomes an issue where you need to win games and you can't leave too many points on your bench. So hopefully he can turn it around. But I'm definitely probably around a 7 or an 8 for Troy.
What was Josh thinking starting Okonkwo over Kyle Pitts? I mean, I guess their week threes were a bit different, but like I'm starting Kyle Pitts if I have Kyle Pitts, you know?
Hmm.
And who is Chigakonkwo in fantasy football? I don't know.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
just
they basically had the same production so far through 3 weeks. Um,
yeah,
but I agree. I think that's probably one he'll look back on and be a little frustrated with himself.
yeah,
Um, I think if you dig a little deeper beyond the fantasy points in the first 3 weeks, like Pitts was playing a lot more snaps, he's getting more targets. I definitely think that was a mistake, but um,
yeah. It's
you that's going to happen in a long season.
Yeah.
right. Hindsight. Chalk my hindsight, I guess.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, living in Atlanta, like you hear news all the time about how much chemistry Pitts and Penix have. So, I mean, Penix also played probably the worst game of his career last week. So maybe chalk it up to that. But I think this could be a little bit of a resurgence for Kyle Pitts this year. Um, so I doubt Josh makes that mistake again.
Hmm.
And that leaves one winless team remaining in the league. I think the most lopsided game in terms of differential between the winning team and losing team this week. AI continues to barnstorm through this league. Trevor now sits at the 4 seed after 2-0 week, and Rob, unfortunately, 0-8 for a team that's headlined by Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley, and now Lamar might be out for a couple weeks. So things going from bad to worse in Gainesville for Quan for the Mooney. That's tough. That's tough. I don't. There's not a lot of hope other than Scatabo looks like he might be the focal point of the offense going forward in New York. So maybe that helps him out. Maybe I mean I guess one question for you guys on Rob's team: what move would you make if you're Rob? What player would you be? I think you've got to look for like a trade one and get two type of move to have a couple more guys to plug into this
Saquon,
lineup. But are
Saquon.
you looking at Saquon? Are you looking at Scatabo? Are you looking at Laporta? Who are you trying to move if you're Rob?
Well, I think it depends on the other side of the equation. If you're a team that needs a tight end, Laporta's not a bad option. He's not the number one tight end like he was his rookie year, but you can exploit a team that needs a tight end because there's a lot of those. I'm not sure he'd be willing to give up Scatabo just because he likes him. You know, I think Saquon would be your tradable asset there. He's not having the same year as last season, but he's still Saquon Barkley. So if you have a team that wants to do a 2-for-1 for a running back of that caliber to fill out your roster as Rob, I think that's the easy pick for your tradable asset. But to be honest with you, at 0-8, I think he's playing not to sing karaoke. He's playing not to get a Jets, Bills, or Patriots tattoo smack dab on his right cheek. That's what he's playing for right now. There is no hope trying to get the playoffs. That's long gone. Um, I'm sorry to say it, Rob, but I'll be the first one to say it. You are out of there's just absolutely no chance that you're making the playoffs. So either pick your song now or pick your least favorite team because you are lined up for that right now. Um, and I obviously Troy's a close second. Um, so that's what you're playing for, Rob. And I know you're gonna listen to this and you're not gonna like hearing it, but someone's got to say it, and it might as well rip the band-aid off at this stage of the season.
Yeah, one of the things about Rob's team that I didn't really love out of the draft was he didn't have really solid wide receiver depth. Like he wasted, not wasted, but he used a lot of his early draft capital on a star running back and aging star running back, a mobile quarterback and a tight end. And his wide receiver one right now is Cortland Sutton, who is technically a wide receiver one. He's wide receiver 11 after that big game last night. But it's the league is a pass friendly league, and in my perspective, fantasy football, like wide receivers are much more liquid assets than running backs are, and quarterbacks, especially in a one QB league. So you kind of if your studs aren't performing with the way that he drafted his team, it's going to be hard to make moves um, like that. So my first thing is you got to send Saquon Barkley away, right? And you can't even really send Chase Brown for much right now because their offense is doing so poorly. So I would try to ship Saquon for some sort of receiver and running back combo, and it's not like he really has much depth either. I mean, Kendrick Miller kind of gets vultures a touchdown in that offense, but if you don't have Kamara, like I don't know if I want him on my team in redraft. So you got to start blowing a bag on waivers and putting offers out there because yeah, to Colin's point, I think he'll be singing Mr. Brightside here in a couple months.
Yeah, I'm not willing to write him out of the playoff picture yet. I agree with Cam that I think his playoffs start Thursday. I will with one more 0-2 week. But it's tough when like mathematically Rob is 2 weeks away, 2 weeks going in his favor away from being in a playoff spot. So, I mean, fantasy football is weird, right? Like someone can break off a 90-yard touchdown and all of a sudden you have a 2-0 week. So I'm not willing to leave him for dead quite yet, but I do think he's on suicide watch for sure at the moment. And we'll see how this week goes for him. On the flip side, I mean, Trev looks like the most complete team in the league. And I know he's only in fourth place, but like he's got Romeo Dobbs scoring for fun on his bench. Um, he has lineup decisions in the fact that like everybody is scoring double digits for him. His worst player is like AJ Brown, who I can't imagine he's going to be playing left blocker for the entire season. So he had one good week so far, but I mean, I don't unless Trevor has a bunch of injuries coming down the stretch. Like this is a scary, scary team.
And it's so confusing too because other than Bijan Robinson, it's not like any of his guys are like dud players. It's just everyone shows up for their team every given week, and if someone doesn't, it's he's got enough there where other guys are showing up, I mean, it's unbelievable how well he drafted. I mean, it's easy to say that 4 weeks in, but like you're absolutely right. You just scroll down to his bench and he's got options there. We have teams here who they're playing their best lineup every week and they got goose eggs on their bench. He's got 30 on his bench. This is at least 2 weeks in a row where he's got the best bench. It might have been all season. He's got the most points on his bench left. And that's not even a testament to manager efficiency. That's just how deep his bench is, which is a testament to how well he drafted and how well, his AI is. I mean, Jesus Christ, Dick DB and C. You're absolutely right. He's got to be the most complete team. Yes, Cam has the most points. Yes, Cam is first place. But I am much more afraid of Trevor's team for the next 12 weeks going into a championship matchup because he doesn't have to spend any fob with what he's got. He doesn't have to make any trades with what he's got. He's got two quarterbacks that are solid, multiple tight ends. I think he's got two defenses. No, just the one defense, but it's arguably the best in the league. Number 7 right now, fantasy wise. Two kickers. I mean, there's not a lot of negatives here for Trevor. And it's really impressive seeing he was out of the game for quite a few years there, out in California trying to get in the film scene, doing all that, not paying attention to football as they wouldn't do in that part of the country. Um, I'm thoroughly impressed, and I got to give props to DB and C.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I mean, he has 3 of the top 9 tight ends in the league right now on his team. He has to choose between the number 1 tight end, Hunter Henry, number 4 tight end, Tucker Kraft, and number 9 tight end, Zach Ertz. So that's rich people problems in fantasy lingo. Also, I mean, I think it's no secret to, tenured fantasy players that the strength of your team is in your flex for the most part. And you got Travis Etienne, the number 9 overall running back, and Quentin Johnston, the number 4 wide receiver in fantasy as your flex players. That's a testament to, I mean, I think Quentin Johnston was like a 17th round draft pick. Has to be the best value on a pick in this whole draft. So great, great drafting. I don't think that he's made a ton of moves either as far as like adding and dropping players. I think he really nailed, hit the nail on the head with picking breakout players this year, players who maybe we were sleeping on in years past. Yeah, props to Trevor. I mean, he's a very scary team right now.
Yeah, his picks in rounds 14 through 17 were Hunter Henry, Romeo Dobbs, Zach Ertz, and Quentin Johnston. That's a
That's
pretty good run in the back half of the draft there. When you do that, you can afford to take a second kicker in the last round of the draft. So
And then name your team after those
yeah,
kickers.
for the
correct.
meme. Yeah, exactly.
um, well, another matchup that had major ramifications on the standings, some big movements in opposite directions. Colin, I mentioned this in the chat, seemingly coming out of nowhere after a really tough start from 0-3 technically to 5-3 now, and on the longest win streak in the league. Meanwhile, Eric drops 3 spots this week with a 0-2 performance. Colin, I'll let you take it away. I mean, your team seems to be resurgent.
Yeah, a little bit. I want to temper my expectations. I know my team is not that strong. I mean, we just ended up finished talking about Trevor's team, and that's what I have to compete against. That is a very, you know, strong team in this league, obviously, but that's my competition. Yes, I scored 130 2 weeks in a row. That feels good. Yes, I started the right quarterback. Um, and I still put up 130 with Jonathan Taylor's weak at one of his weakest games of the season, basically one of his weakest games of the season. Um, yeah, it feels good. It sucks that I took away the median win from Troy, uh, for the sake of him being less in the playoff hunt now. Like obviously it helps me. I don't know how much it helps me. It's only a week 4 2-0, which could mean nothing by the end of the regular season. But it definitely hurts Troy more than it helps me at this stage of the season. And again, I'll say it every week. I don't want people out of contention this early. Um, but Justin Fields toss. They were trying to do the miracle. I don't know. Um, what's it
Floating
called?
ladder.
Lateral play. I don't know if we'll ever see something like that again, like what the Patriots, or I guess what the Dolphins did against the Patriots, which is hurtful to say. My kicker went negative, and I said it like probably at 1:30 on Sunday that's going to lose me the game. I'm glad it didn't, but it almost lost me the median. So you bet your ass Joey Sly is going to be a free agent after 3:08 tomorrow morning. I'm starting the right defenses. I have my defenses in place for the next few weeks. But it's my receiver room that I need to figure out. Drake London's out next week with the bye. Um, so I think it's trade season for me. I think I'm going to start putting some feelers out there. I need to fill out my receiver room because that is my weakest point. And um, and I'm going to have a tough time figuring out a starting lineup for week 5 because again, I have a couple buys. So we'll figure that out. But on the flip side, Eric, I think I'm a little more panicked about Eric's team than I am Josh's team. He's not scoring a lot of points. I mean, he is 3-5. He's in the 10 spot. Um, but there's not a lot of positives for Eric's team. All the guys that you would have picked expecting to have big seasons this year are just not, except for Gibbs. And maybe it turns around, like you said, Nick. Fantasy football, NFL can happen in one play. You can score 14.9 points in any given play. No, 15.9 points. That's the max in any play. So like that changes a whole matchup, a whole game, a whole median. Um, but I'm a little panicked about Eric's team and what the future holds for him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I also wanted to hold a moment of silence for Dante Thornton, who's no longer on your roster. I'm gonna miss that weekly check-in. Um, but we will replace it by checking in on Harold Fannin, who was who might not be Randy Moss 2.0, but he was $44, and we're still at I think like $2 a fab per point or so spent on him. So don't worry, I still have something that I'm holding on to each week to check in on because I know that was your other guy. So
Well, I'll say this. I dropped Thornton on the right week because he didn't even get a reception this week. So glad he's not anywhere near my team at the moment. Fannin, though, he's still a good part of this offense, which is a piss poor offense. But I have the two best players in that offense with Judkins and Fannin. So he'll score. He's not going to have a Jacoby Myers season where was a great, you know, a relevant option in an offense who never scored a touchdown. I think Fannin will score. I think Fannin will have a breakout game. I think I'm sticking with Fannin over Ingram for the foreseeable future, which is crazy to think because I thought Evan Ingram was going to be that guy this year. Um, but no, thank you, Nick. I appreciate you holding me accountable for my fob. All 79 of my fob spent has gotten me a total of like less than 7.5 points. So thank you, Nick. I really appreciate it. You're doing a great job as a host of this pod.
thank you. No problem. Sorry, Cam. Back over to you.
Um, yeah, Eric's team has just been disappointing. Ted McMillan hasn't scored yet, although he's gotten a bunch of targets. Of course, Ladd McConkey might be the biggest bust as far as players who were picked in the top 2 rounds in this league. Has to be. Now he's like the wide receiver 3 on his own team behind a geriatric Keenan Allen and a Quentin Johnson who figured out where his hands were this year. So I think it's tough. And then of course CJ Stroud is not playing well. You're forced to start Sam Darnold this week. It looks like after
Yep.
the Jake Browning experience failed. So, but looks like he has Jackson Dart on the bench, which isn't some signs of life there. I feel like it's just a matter of time before Eric has a pop off game. I don't think Ladd McConkey is going to be wide receiver 50 for the entire year, and I think Tet's finally going to score. But he somehow ran into quarterback issues by like week 3. So not really the best thing you want to see beginning of the season. But yeah, Colin, I mean, your team's looking strong too. I think your core is really solid, right? With Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor, JSN, Drake London, Quinn and then Justin Fields is going to pop off for some of these long, 40-yard touchdown runs. That's going to break open the game. So I think Eric's I'm not going to hit the panic button on him yet. He's probably like a 5 or 6. But I do think Ladd, Tet, and hopefully, well, I guess I don't even know if CJ Stroud's on his team anymore. But those two, I think, regress to the mean, certainly.
And
Yeah,
last but
Eric's
not least, we had a matchup among the two top teams in the standings this week. Both beat the median. This could be a potential playoff rematch down the line, maybe even a championship rematch. Cam, you got a big win over Alex. I know you were worried that you were going to be the second highest scorer and lose your head to head again this week, but kudos to you for pulling out the 2-0 week. How'd you feel with the win over Alex?
Bittersweet, gotta say, losing Malik Neighbors for the season is tough. I feel like with where I drafted, Puka and Malik Neighbors probably were interchangeable as far as one or first round or second round pick. I wanted them both, but went with Puka and somehow Malik Neighbors fell into my lap for a couple of weeks and now he's done. Um, I will say my team is not as deep as Trevor's. We'll say that for sure. I have just been pretty lucky with some of the lineup choices that I've made. This week, of course, marked by Kenneth Gainwell dropping almost 30 points on a lineup decision that I actually didn't even know that Jalen Warren was going to be out, except Colin texted me at like 9 a.m., 30 minutes before kickoff, said, "Hey, what are you gonna do with Jalen Warren?" And then I mean, that ultimately was what decided the game for me. I was not even checking my phone at that time. Um, and of course, Dallas Goedert with 2 touchdowns. George Pickens has a monster game. And one last week it was David Montgomery. The week before it was Jalen Warren. I mean, Puka Nacua has been the only kind of stable asset that I've had. Jalen Hurts is liable to only throw for 130 yards in a week, so I've kind of been lucky with having the players who pop off that week. Unfortunately, losing Malik Neighbors means that I got to kind of scrounge around for the next guy. Thankfully, I'm deep at receiver. I got Olave to plug in and a wide receiver 3, but um, it's not going to be that way every week. I'm not going to have a 30 burger from somebody who I kind of just popped into my lineup. So a little nervous. I'm probably higher than most on the panic meter for my own team. But I was nervous that whole night watching Jamar Chase in that second Monday night game, thinking he might bust a 70-yard touchdown down the sideline. What
Yeah,
would you
I kind
guys,
of
I would say, what would you guys give me as far as panic meter right now with the most recent news about Malik Neighbors?
To make the playoffs, I give you a 0, but to win the
Okay.
championship, I give you about a 6.
Hmm.
And I think it's for that reason. I mean, it feels like you most teams that are well constructed can sustain one big injury, which you've had, but it's really hard to sustain two big injuries and be a championship contender. So you're sort of half dead in the championship race, which is a tough way to be because now you've got to kind of watch intently and hope that none of your guys go down. Um, but yeah, so I would say, I don't have any panic as far as like you getting into the dance, but as far as having a team that's deep enough and able to take on an Alex or a Trevor or something like that, whoever it might be in the semis and in the finals, I think you're holding your breath a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. Um, you're gonna come back down to earth too. I mean, you're far and away most points for. Like you said, each week you have one or two guys that just like absolutely pop off, and that's just gonna come back down to the the mean, I guess. This week happens to be three guys scoring 30 points. So between three of your guys, you scored 90. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. It's still a strong team. But I think Nick nailed it on the head. Like you're making the playoffs, that's foregone. But as far as like a championship caliber team, I'm not sure if this gets it done. Whereas you look at Alex's team, and he hasn't needed the number one overall pick to be the number one overall pick, and he's still winning games 6-2. He's up there in points for. He's up there in max points for without Jamar Chase. If the Bengals decide to trade for a Jameis Winston, a Russell Wilson, any sort of caliber quarterback above Jake Browning, well, then he's coming back to being the number one overall pick. And so Alex's team is right there. I can't say it's right there with Trevor's because the bench isn't there. I mean, he does have 21 on the bench from the Lions D, and Justice Hill went for almost 30, which won't happen again. That won't happen again the rest of the season. But he's got tight end options. Um, and that's really it. That's all he's got on the bench. He's got options in his tight end room. Other than that, it's not much there. But Alex's team, barring any injuries, is a force to be reckoned with, and he held his own against you. Um, if I don't tell you to put Gainwell in, or if I don't tell you to deal with Warren, you lose this game. Um, and you might even lose to the median. I mean, the math isn't there. It's still close, but um, that lineup change makes a huge difference. But it's week 4. You're 7-1, most points for. There's no reason to panic or anything. Maybe we it's trade season. I think it's just trade season. Shine or shade, there will be a trade by the end of the week, or before Sunday. Maybe not Thursday, but before Sunday.
I'm gonna shine it. I think there's some folks sniffing around and people putting their guys on the blocks and whatnot. Um, Maybe people see, what happens tomorrow with waivers, and if you don't get the guy you were looking at to fill a lineup hole or something, then you try and address it via trade. So I'll shine it.
I'm going to shine it too, mostly because I've had a couple trade conversations this week already, but also I feel like there's a little bit of unbalance as far as there's a handful of teams that are unbalanced in their roster. Like I personally feel like I have a solid wide receiver room, and I got to play Kenneth Gainwell in order to fill out my starting lineup at running back. And I know that there's other people who have the opposite problem where they have a lot of running back depth, but they need receiver help. And of course, there's two teams in this league who are in desperate need to make some changes to their roster to even stay alive in the playoffs. So I think there's a lot of different team needs and teams that have needs to win. So I think that kind of creates a market for people to want to make moves. So I shine it.
Yeah, yeah, I'll shine it as well. My question: I will be sending out offers. Um, since the season where I literally traded with every single team except for Alex because he just like he refused to trade with me because I was trading with everyone. I haven't been that trade heavy, and I haven't even been that transaction heavy in the past few years when I used to be the transaction leader. Um, I definitely think there's a trade that happens. I'm not saying it's because it's going to be me. I'm just saying it's trade season. You're absolutely right with the unbalanced rosters. Um, and so that's just a formula for deals.
Quick note on that because I just looked at it today and I was surprised. If you had to guess in our league who has done the most transactions up to this point and how many they have versus how many the second person has. So it's kind of a two-part question. Who has done the most transactions and how many have they done?
Just
Damn,
this season.
Just just this season. Yeah.
I like to think I'm tuned in with this league more than most people in this league, and
Mhm.
I have no idea. Maybe it's Trevor, but that doesn't make sense because I have no idea. I'm taking a shot in the dark, and I'd rather hear Nick's answer before I answer this.
I think it could be me. I've made a number of transactions. I feel like I'm probably towards the top. Um, I'm trying to think if anyone has made more. Maybe John. I feel like Johnny secret like quietly makes a number of like waiver wire pickups. Or Josh could be up there. I'm not sure in terms of number. I guess if we've had like 4 weeks, maybe I'll say the leader has 10.
You want to know the answer?
I do.
It is Nick. Nick has 19 transactions this season.
Damn.
The next closest person has 8, and it is Colin. Colin and Troy are tied at 8. Yeah. Nick has been
Wow.
moving and shaking this season.
Where do you see that? Have you been, are you counting by hand or do you see that
Uh,
somewhere?
you got to go to league history, and it'll show you this season number of messages, transactions, total points for, points against, win
Okay.
percentage.
I did think it had that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I've had to make a lot of like bench changes. I've been trying to find like in the first couple weeks guys who were hot and changing out defenses and kickers and things like that. So that's probably a lot of them. I don't think my starting lineup has necessarily changed a ton, other than like having to slot guys in as I've dealt with some injuries. Um, but that's that. There you go. That's pretty surprising. I didn't realize I had made so many, but I had a feeling I would be towards the top.
you also have the most messages sent in the app this year at 17.
So what you're saying is I need to get a life.
Yeah.
I wanted
Interesting.
to, before we move on to talking about week 5 and the waivers and things like that, I just wanted to double click on a couple of players here. Cam, I know you're a big Josh Downs guy. So since I can't pick on Dante Thornton anymore, I thought maybe I would spotlight Josh Downs. How are you feeling about yet another single digit performance from you dude?
It's tough. He's on the bench in every single league that I'm in. I actually think I dropped him from another league. Um, it's tough. I mean, he was a pretty analytical pick. I mean, I've seen a couple things from some other fantasy people on Twitter and on Reddit that say that he has a really good analytical profile, gets good separation. He's just 5'9", 171 pounds, and he's only really on the field for 2 wide receiver sets, and a lot of the area of the field that he works, Tyler Warren is getting a lot of that work now. So didn't really expect that too much, especially knowing that Daniel Jones made, Wandale Robinson 140 targeted receiver last year. I was like, certainly this will do something for Josh Downs, but hasn't panned out that way.
Yep. And then on Alex's team, I just wanted to shout out Geno Smith for his second 3 interception game of the season. Um, that's a tough look. I wonder whether he will stay rostered because I mean he does not. I guess he technically is like a mid QB2, but he seems to be like 5 points or 25 points, and that's tough. I assume he can find something better at the backup QB position there. Geno Smith, one of my 19 transactions, I guess 2 of them actually picking him up and then dropping him again. So,
That's
um,
interesting that you pick him up. I just want to make a quick note here.
yeah,
I saw this on Twitter, the only place where I get all this information. But someone said that like the NFL is like very obviously a coach's league, And that might be an example, which is maybe it's ironic that he's playing for his old coach, the oldest head coach in NFL history, Pete Carroll. But like you look at a guy like Daniel Jones, who's in a terrible organization, had like what 3 or 4 head coaches as his, in his tenure for the Giants. Maybe it's less than that, but still. And now he's in Indianapolis. He's got what's it, Shane Steichen,
Mm-hmm.
and he's balling out. And you see this with quarterbacks. You see this even maybe you could argue this with receivers. The Jaguars coach, the offensive coordinator for the Jaguars, he's known as the wide receiver killer. And you look at Brian Thomas, if you look at this guy's receivers in his past years, a number one receiver, elite receiver, isn't having a good season under this guy. I think it's Shane Waldron, if I'm getting that name right. So like I'm tuning into that a little bit where I don't know the coaches like I know the players, but the NFL being like a coaches league is interesting to me because there's a handful of examples that you could pick out of a hat and it's the coaching, it's the you could say system or the way that they go about their prep for a game. It can make all the difference for a guy, and maybe it's unfair for me to be so down on a guy like Daniel Jones when he has the talent. I'm not ever going to deny that he has the athletic ability, but when you don't get it done and then you don't get it done for years on end, and then you look horrible and have like 5 turnover games, I'm not going to believe in you. But when you do this for Indiana and you have a good running back and a good program and stability, and the owner, the female owner, the Ursay's daughter, who's at practice with the headset on, that only speaks to positivity. I love that. I love seeing that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to either hear your thoughts or if anyone has something to say when they hear this, if they have other examples or if they find that interesting, I'd love some more insight from different perspectives.
You know, I hear you, and I can think of some examples, but I can also think of some examples where this season specifically, the coach, uh, I guess, mantra or mindset has kind of changed. I mean, going into the offseason or going into week one, I think everybody would have thought that Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, and Omarion Hampton has played well this season, but Greg Roman has stereotypically been a two running back offense where the wide receiver two in that offense gets no looks. And even though Lad McConkey hasn't played well, that offense does have space to make 3 fantasy viable wide receivers on their team. So, it's interesting that some coaches kind of stick to the game plan, and then given the assets around them, some coaches kind of pivot, and it's worked well for the Chargers so far.
Yeah, and while we were talking about the Colts, I actually had the Colts as a comp in mind this season for Alex, a team that, in general, just not a lot was expected of. Didn't have a great year last year. Alex's little emoji or whatever for his team even kind of looks a little bit like the Colts colors at least. Um, and I think the first couple weeks of the season, people were like, "Oh, this is cute," like from Alex and from the Colts, like this will fade. But now people are like, maybe these teams are actually better than we thought. Like he's third in max points for and second in actual points for and second in the standings. So, I mean, kudos to him. Like, he said he has more time this year. He's paying more attention and it's definitely showing. He's a force to be reckoned with as well. So I just wanted to shout out his team in particular this week. Let's chat quickly about week 5. We have 4 teams on a bye this week. The Falcons, Bears, Packers, and Steelers. It's actually the most teams on a bye until week 8. The next 2 weeks, there will only be 2 teams on a bye. So that's interesting. So 4 teams
I
on a
feel like
bye this week.
I feel like the
Yeah.
bye weeks change every year. Like, what are the
Yeah.
rules for the bye weeks? I need in writing what the fucking rules are for the buys because it's not fair that there's a week 5 bye and a week 14 bye. We need to squish this down, and maybe it's an NFL media thing, trying to get as much money as possible, as most decisions in the NFL. But like, I don't care if 6 teams aren't playing in week 5. I just expect 6 teams to not be playing in like week 9, and then that's the end of the buys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I
Here's the number of teams on bye week. 4, 2, 2, 6-4-4-2-4-4. Makes no sense.
Yeah, fuck off. That pisses me off, man.
So, anyways, the buys kick in with four teams and four definitely fantasy relevant teams. I mean, players like, Bijan, Jordan Love, Roma Dunze,
Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenneth Gainwell, largely, Jonnu Smith, all the greats on by this week. So,
Roman Wilson.
correct. Yeah. All right, let's do some I know we're almost at an hour here, so let's just do some real quick matchups. I won't even click into them. We'll go through. I'll call out the matchup. Everybody just give me your winner. So we lock these in. We'll go real quick. If there's anything you want to highlight in particular, we can, but so we kind of speed through these. Myself versus Josh, I'm taking Josh.
Dude, you can't not pick yourself, man.
Yeah, I can.
All right, fine. He's averaging 125, you're averaging 115, but your manager efficiency is 88 to his 86%. If you're not going to pick yourself, I'll pick you. How about that?
Works for me.
I'm gonna pick Nick as well, just because I like your little profile picture of the dog. This is a toss-up. I think this is gonna be a close game.
Troy versus Willie. I think Troy needs it more, and Troy gets a win.
Both managers are not having a great season as far as lineups. Troy's at picking at 81%, Willie's picking at 82.5%. Um, I'll give it to Willie. I think he does. I think he's got the stronger team. Josh Allen versus New England on Sunday night. I'm going Willie here. Sorry, Peekaboos. You're going to be, hiding a little bit longer.
I think Willie doesn't escape the Tyreek injury and has some lineup issues. Troy has Justin Jefferson and Nico Collins on bye next week, so he wins. He needs this win more than anybody. I think needs to win, maybe besides Rob. So I think Troy wins.
Johnny against Jason. Give me Johnny.
Both these managers are picking at a very good rate. Jason is picking at essentially 93% manager efficiency rating, and Johnny's picking at 90%. With that, I'll go with the better man. Actually, I don't know. Jason's got a few buys. He's got Caleb and DJ Moore and Calvin Austin out. A lot of injuries on the bench. Still no Rashee Rice. Yeah, I'll go Johnny.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is back. I think this week they play the Chargers. Going to be a shootout. I think Johnny wins this one handedly.
Cam versus Trev. This is another tough matchup after Alex last week. I'm taking iRobot.
I'm gonna go.
Yikes.
I'm gonna go me for not obvious reasons. The Birthday Bowl 2.0.
Birthday Bowl. It's like a divisional game. You don't know what's going to happen. This one's going to be hard to predict. Seemingly, it's going to be high scoring. It might not be. Cam is picking at 92%. Trevor is picking at 76%.
That's
That
just
is,
because he's like a million points ahead in max points for.
you still got to be better than 75% of your points, man. You got to do better than that DB and C. Where's the AI in the regular season? The preseason AI is hitting. The regular season AI isn't. Cam has an average of 152 to Trevor's 132 points per game. Reluctantly, and I say this wholeheartedly, I am reluctantly picking Cam.
Alex gets hit pretty hard by the buys this week. Metcalf and Adunze, and currently the Steelers defense all on buys for him. So his win percentage will go up once his lineup is properly set. But I think Eric gets this one.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, Alex currently doesn't have a full roster. He doesn't have, I mean, unless right, he's missing two receivers. So he has to start two receivers, and those two would be Alec Pierce and Rashid Shaheed. You don't win games with those as your wide receiver 2 and 3. Eric's picking at a better rate anyway, 88% to Alex's 86. Give me Eric.
Yeah, I like Eric in this one too, rights the ship. I think Alex has a little bit of skid here, has some roster decisions to make. Give me Eric.
Careful what you say about Alec Pierce, considering you include him in every trade offer in another league. So you might want to talk him up instead of talking so much shit about him. And last but not least, yourself against Rob. I'm sorry, Rob. I said you need to avoid going 0-2 this week in order to have any hope of the playoffs. But that being said, I think Colin continues his upward mobility here. Give me Colin.
If we could,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
can
definitely
we just click on that on their little matchup real quick? Just look at Rob's lineup currently. It's just kind of sad. If you scroll down, it's just not really that. It's just a little sad. So,
empty, literally empty.
Rob currently doesn't have a backup quarterback either if JJ McCarthy doesn't play, so he's going to be scrounging around on the waivers to start somebody. If that wasn't the case, I actually would have picked Rob for the upset here, but there's just too much to overcome here. I think Colin wins this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking myself. I don't have to say that. I'm only picking at an 86% rate, whereas Rob's picking at 83%. But Rob's average points is 99 points per game. At least mine is at 118, so I feel good about that. It's not the 130 I'd like to be at, but 118 solid. Um, as I said, I'm picking myself, but this is totally set up for me to lose this game. Like it's just I just have that feeling that I'm gonna be the win that Rob gets. And as much shit as I've said about him specifically on this pod, about his team, excuse me. Um, I just have it's just set up for me to lose to him this week. I have no explanation to it.
Yeah, I think he's projected to lose by 25 or so right now. So he needs to find that kind of firepower, or excuse me, no, for about 35. He needs to find that. Am I doing this math right? 42. Okay, there we go. Third tries the charm. I'm looking at too many screens at the moment. Okay, he's projected to lose by 42. I clicked on his week 7 matchup with Troy for some reason. Anyways, projected to lose by 42. He needs to find that from a quarterback, one flex, and a kicker. That's going to be a lot to find on the waivers, in terms of projection. So I think he's going to need some help, and I don't think he finds it this week.
No, there's not a lot on the waivers this week. Every single week somebody's been bought for like 30 or 40 fab. There should be nobody on the waivers this week that is going for more than like 15. I can say that pretty confidently.
We'll see. We'll see. Just I mean, so let's quickly end by talking about our predictions or our thoughts about the waivers. The 3 of the top 4 guys right now in terms of trending are available in our league. Darren Waller, who Rob, I believe, promised was going to go for more than 33 fab or something like that. Darius Slayton, who could be a like-for-like replacement for someone who just lost Malik Neighbors. We'll see. And Malik Washington. We have a lot of Dolphins fans in this league, and obviously Tyreek going down. And then, other guys that had some big weeks like Xavier Scott, et cetera, potentially out there if you need a deeper cut. Sean Tucker, if Bucky's going to miss some time, could be the new RB2 there. So there's a lot of a lot of interesting players in addition to some big names. I'm expecting quite a bit of fab to be spent this week. I think this is between the buys and the injuries. I think the spending is not going to slow down this week.
That's a fair assessment. I still think nobody's gonna be splashing on one player. Maybe Rob does with Darren Waller. That could be a given. I want to shout out Malik Washingbeard. I just wanted to say that name on live television, so I got it out there. There's also a few kickers available, and that's interesting to me. Kickers are interesting.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of activity on the waiver wire this week, especially considering some players do not have a starting quarterback on their roster playing this week. So I think there's going to be a lot of fab spent across multiple positions. This might be the week where we spent the most fab across maybe every position, right? Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, defense, and kicker.
Yeah, agreed.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Give me just 1 second of silence for Malik Neighbors and his passing. I think it was just a difficult time. Okay, stop.
1 second. And Tyreek, for the
Oh, yeah.
Dolphins fans out there, that's gotta hurt.
Ouch.
Even the sight of it, that was one of the nastiest injuries in recent memory. I mean, when you dislocate your ankle, that looks bad. When you dislocate your knee,
He was like cheering when he was leaving the field,
yeah,
too.
what's that about?
He was like, I don't gotta play for this godforsaken organization anymore.
That's what everyone thinks it was.
Cool.
Well, yeah, with that, good luck, everyone. I'm excited to see when I wake up at a reasonable hour tomorrow what happened on the waiver wire and what all you degenerates did while I was sleeping.
Peace.